Welcome to Tuesday, the 18th of May, 2021. This Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Chugwater Chili, the gourmet spice of Western life. Did you know that Chugwater Chili now makes a hot version of their famous chili seasoning? For those of you looking for a little extra spice in their life, give Chugwater Chili a try. Typical May weather is going to be what's coming our way over the next 5 to 7 days. It's going to be just, well, really as it should this time of year. There's a very slow moving upper low. This is going to drift through the region for another really day or two before it exits the region, only to be replaced by another one. We're going to see a warm up in some areas of the central and southern Rockies Wednesday through Friday, while the northern part of the Rockies turns cooler. Those northern areas are warm right now, like Montana and central and northern Wyoming and the western Dakotas, while it's cool in southern Wyoming and parts of Colorado, western Nebraska, and western Kansas, but that will reverse. We have a cool, wet weather pattern for northwest Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho this weekend. Going to see some rain and mountain snow up there. And it has begun. You say, what do you mean it has begun? Well, stay tuned later in the podcast and we'll talk about what has started. These are temperatures for May so far compared to average. And you can see how cold it's been. For those of you thinking, it's been a cold spring, boy, things are way behind in terms of coming on out. If you want to know why, boy, look at the temperatures. The Continental Divide has been the dividing line really since fall, and it continues to be the dividing line between the warmer, drier, and the cooler and wetter conditions across the USA. But boy, this is a very cool May after what was a very cool April. We'll take a look later this week at the long-range forecast for June and see if we're going to reverse that trend. This is part of the reason why it's so cool. We've got an upper level low right over Alamosa, Colorado, moving really slowly. Now it is cut off from the main flow of cold air up to the north, so that's why it's pretty mild in this region right here. But the counterclockwise spin is bringing upslope to Colorado, southeastern Wyoming, western Nebraska, western Kansas, keeping shower and thunderstorm activity in the region. It is drifting slowly northeastward and will be moving completely into the Midwest in the next couple of days. This is the next trough that's going to be dropping southeast in the Pacific Northwest, and we'll show you what will happen there. As we get into Thursday morning, that low gets centered over central Oregon, and into the Pacific Northwest, pushing into western Idaho. Now, you may be seeing this and go, oh boy, here comes a big storm. But what happens a lot of time towards the end of spring is lows just like this one come in from the Gulf of Alaska and British Columbia, then kind of get stalled out. The reason you see this big high pressure ridge, if you were to draw the jet stream, it would look like this by Thursday. Well, we've got a big trough here, but a big ridge here. So there's a battle between the high pressure ridge and this low. So what's going to end up happening is this low, instead of moving east, is actually going to be drifting north. And it's going to keep the areas in the north coolest and most wet and most unsettled. These are high temperatures relative to average on Thursday. Look at the contrast. We showed you this yesterday. It's going to really warm up in these red and orange areas here, while really cool down up into Montana, the Pacific Northwest, Idaho, and even portions of Nevada and California. There's the upper level low by Friday. Notice it goes from south central Oregon to central Nevada, and it's going to basically just sit there and spin for a few days, then lift this way by later in the weekend and into early next week, held up by this big high that's going to bring some real warm summertime conditions to the central and eastern areas of the United States. This is by Sunday. This is Friday. This is Sunday. See how it just lifts north instead of moving east? And that is a common thing we see at the end of spring. So that's another sign that the seasons are gaining momentum in terms of the change. This is the forecasted rain and snow forecast for the next several days. This takes us through Sunday. So this is for the next 5 to 6 days here. You can see southern Colorado, southwestern areas of Kansas, northeastern New Mexico, and the panhandles are going to be the most wet. These areas right here really need the moisture, and they're going to get some, and that's good news for this area here as well as southwest Kansas. Notice there's another area of enhancement up here. This is with that upper level low this weekend, and this is going to be rain and snow up here. and over the higher elevations of western and northwestern Wyoming, but the amounts of precipitation here are much lighter. So there's going to continue to be shower and thunderstorm activity, but the two bullseyes will be here in the short term and here and up here in the later term. More moisture for North Dakota is certainly good news. This is what it looks like for snowfall. Notice Montana, parts of Idaho, the mountains of Oregon and into California, and even some of the higher mountains in Nevada, and the Uintas here in northeastern Utah and Colorado's southern and southwestern mountains will all see some late spring snow. Now, most of this is up really, really high, except up here, Beartooth Pass, parts of Yellowstone Park, going to see a little bit of wet snow later this week and over the weekend. But you can see out here, going to be warm enough that it will all be in liquid form. It has begun. This is what I meant. I saw my first Miller moth today, so I decided that we should have some fun with this. Anybody that lives in the Western High Plains and Rockies knows all about these little guys, these Miller moths. Some years they're really bad. Like last year, there was a lot of them. Now, with the very cool weather we've had this spring, I believe this has delayed the hatching of the Miller moth. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to build a map of where people are seeing the Miller moths. Now, I know many of you, maybe where it's a little bit warmer, have already seen the Miller moths. Maybe you haven't, but let's put them on a map and track the Miller moth progress here in the coming weeks. Because now that they're beginning to hatch, we all know what it's like once they get in your house, get in your car, get around your porch light and everything else. So send your Miller moth report to podcast@dayweather.com and we'll have some fun with it. Don't forget to use Chugwater Don at checkout to get 20% off of Chugwater Chili at chugwaterchili.com. Have yourself a great Tuesday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.